Deep within the rugged landscapes of Scandinavia lies a nation that has defied all odds to become one of the wealthiest countries in the world. Norway started as a backwards, poor country, but became a prosperous empire. Today, Norway is the second wealthiest nation in the world if you disregard micronations. The country's sovereign wealth fund is among the most significant investment mechanisms globally. You might think its vast oil reserves would be the reason for its wealth, but most oil-rich small nations face severe economic and social challenges. So how did Norway avoid the oil curse to become the economic powerhouse it is today? In this video, we will discuss when, how, and why this Scandinavian nation got so rich. Settlement in Norway started around 9000 BC, following the conclusion of the initial Ice Age, which transformed it into a place suitable for human habitation. The Norwegian economy was historically centered on local farming communities and other industries, such as fishing, hunting, wood, and timber production. A domestic and international merchant fleet for trade due to the country's topography and climate. Communities in the north and west relied more on fishing and foreign trade than those in the south and east, which were primarily dependent on agriculture. During the onset of the Industrial Revolution in the UK and continental Europe, Norway faced hardships. The harsh winters presented challenges for farming, while the country's natural terrain impeded travel, education, and the exchange of information. Norway's economy relied partly on other Scandinavian countries, and famines drove numerous families to pursue a new life in the emerging United States. However, during the final decades of the 18th century, the Norwegian economy experienced growth due to the rise of liberalism. Foreign trade of fish and timber had been significant for centuries, and the merchant fleet was expanding rapidly. Things only got better for Norway when the country achieved autonomy from Denmark in 1814, following a long-standing union of 417 years. Norway became a robust and equitable nation with significant self-sufficiency in farming, fishing, and hunting. The newly emerging state did not have its own establishments, business owners, or local funds. Nevertheless, because of its abundant natural resources and proximity to the sea in the United Kingdom, Norway, connected to Sweden through a loose royal union, took advantage of its opportunities after a few decades. By 1870, it had become a relatively prosperous nation. In terms of GDP per capita, Norway was well above the European average, ranking in the middle among the Western European countries and surpassing Sweden by a significant margin. However, Norway faced more hardships due to the worldwide economic decline following the Napoleonic Wars, a constrictive monetary policy, and trade restrictions imposed by the UK. After the Second World War, the Labour Party developed a social democratic economy with a substantial presence in the public sector. The Norwegian economy received an additional $400 million from the U.S. Marshall Plan. Norway established its central bank in 1816 and introduced a national currency called the spesidaler, which was tied to the value of silver. The value of the spesidaler decreased notably during the challenging initial years of economic recession in the 1820s. Things looked up when the Norwegian spesidaler gained its par value to silver in 1842. Norway yet again saw a period of significant economic growth up to the mid-1870s. This impressive growth was mirrored in only a few other countries. The growth process was initiated by high productivity growth in agriculture and the success of the foreign sector. Adopting new structures and technology and substituting arable for livestock production increased labor productivity in agriculture by about 150% between 1835 and 1910. Exporting timber, fish, and, in particular, maritime services achieved high growth rates. Norway became a significant power in shipping services during this period, accounting for about 7% of the world merchant fleet in 1875. Norwegian sailing vessels were renowned for transporting international goods worldwide at competitive prices. Then, Norwegians saw a boom from 1950 to 1973. Often referred to as the golden era of the Norwegian economy, characterized by an impressive annual GDP per capita growth rate of 3.3%. Foreign trade flourished, unemployment was nearly non-existent, and the inflation rate remained stable. Many attribute this prosperity to the substantial public sector and effective economic planning. Even though this era was far from the economic powerhouse that Norway is today, it was a period of economic strength for the country. In the late 1960s, Norway struck gold with the discovery of gas and oil. The discovery of gas in Groningen, Netherlands in 1959 prompted a reassessment of the North Sea's petroleum potential. This discovery sparked excitement in a region heavily reliant on coal and imported oil for energy. As a result, attention turned to the North Sea in the search for more gas and oil. Despite initial negative geological assessments, Norway's enthusiasm for exploration grew after gas discovery in the Netherlands. In October 1962, Phillips Petroleum applied to the Norwegian authorities to conduct exploratory activities in the North Sea. The company sought a license for the areas of the North Sea falling within Norwegian territory, potentially encompassing the Norwegian continental shelf, or better known as NCS. So, what is the NCS? Simply put, it is a relatively shallow section of seabed off the coast of Norway. The company proposed a monthly payment of $160,000. The offer was interpreted as an effort to secure exclusive rights, which the authorities refused, as they were unwilling to grant one company control over the entire shelf. If the areas were to be open for exploration, multiple companies would need to be involved. Ekofisk oil field, situated in the southern part of the Norwegian sector in the North Sea, was discovered in 1969, marking the beginning of Norway's oil industry. At that time, it was the world's largest offshore field, and it had been in production for over 50 years, with plans for production to continue for almost 30 more years. Significant amounts of oil and gas were subsequently discovered in the northern North Sea, including the Statfjord, Gullfox, Snorre, Oseberg, and Troll fields. In 2010, over 400 million standard cubic meter of oil were found in Johan Sverdrup, making it the fifth most significant oil discovery ever on the NCS. These discoveries highlight the North Sea's status as one of the world's premier petroleum basins. Norway may not be one of the largest oil-producing nations globally, providing just 2% of the world's oil demand, but it is a significant exporter. Most oil produced on the Norwegian shelf is exported and contributes substantially to the country's revenue. In 2019, crude oil worth $29 billion was exported. Additionally, in 2018, Norway exported about 61.1 million metric tons of crude oil via pipelines and ships. This significant discovery of oil promised great wealth and significantly changed Norway's fortunes. Consequently, Norway had to make a crucial decision. They thought about handling this sudden wealth with care. The Norwegian government decided to save the oil money for the future instead of spending it all at once, following a similar approach to what it had done with hydropower companies. This decision was based on the belief that natural resources belong to the people and that oil and gas production should be a profitable activity, with the profits being funneled to the state. In addition, the government established a public oil company called Statoil, which aimed to learn from and eventually take over foreign companies in the long term. Norway also made substantial investments in petroleum processing infrastructure and the education of engineers. Essentially, the country prioritized long-term security rather than investing in short-term popularity. Not only that, but the politicians established the 10 oil commandments to organize oil production. It was clear that Norway had to establish its industry, develop its technology to extract the oil, and make the Norwegian state a key player in managing the oil resources. To gain more control over their oil production, foreign companies were gradually replaced by Norwegian companies, such as Statoil and Norsk Hydro. This shift allowed Norway to retain a more significant portion of the oil revenue for themselves. Today, these companies are global leaders in the oil and gas industry, utilizing their own developed technology for exploring and extracting oil worldwide, a process that began in the 1970s. Over the past 40 years, petroleum activities on the Norwegian continental shelf have significantly contributed to Norway's economic growth and financed much of the welfare state. According to government figures, the industry has created values over 12 trillion Norwegian kroner in current terms. According to the government's official website, the oil and gas sector contributes to about 23% of Norway's value creation, which is more than double the contribution of the manufacturing industry. Norway, with a national population of only a fourth of New Delhi's, is one of the world's top 10 largest exporters of crude oil and is the largest to Europe. The sector contributes to 21% of all economic investments and employs over 180,000 people directly and indirectly. While the discovery of oil was purely by chance, how Norway has managed and used the substantial funds generated by the industry is a whole different story. Before we get into the last part of the video, make sure to check out the link in the description for my best recommendation for further expanding our knowledge on a more personal scale. Another turning point for Norway's economy would be the Norwegian Oil Fund, established in 1990, also known as the Government Pension Fund Global. As the oil industry expanded, prices rose, and Norway found itself with an abundance of money. However, the 1980s oil price drop led to a recession, and economic growth slowed. Although Norway hadn't squandered its money, it needed a better plan. The Heritage Savings and Trust Fund influenced the creation of this fund in Alberta, Canada. The fund's purpose was to function as a financial reserve and a long-term savings plan for future generations. Norway made its first deposit into the Government Pension Fund in 1996, and by 1998, it had a market value of about $23 billion. Norway's sovereign wealth fund is the largest in the world, with $1.36 trillion in assets. Norwegian law restricts the government from withdrawing funds financed by oil revenue because that money is intended for the people of Norway. The government can only withdraw a 3% return earned by the fund during a year. As of 2020, the fund had grown to an impressive $1.3 trillion, making it one of the largest funds in the world. And by December 2021, the fund was worth about $250,000 per Norwegian citizen. The money in this fund has been earned through investments in equities, fixed income, and real estate. Through this fund, Norway owns 1.5% of all shares in the world's listed companies, despite being a country of only 5.5 million people. Beyond economic growth, Norway used oil revenue to strengthen its societal welfare through the provision of social services and support systems. A generous welfare state was established, offering universal health care, education, and social security to all residents. Accessible childcare, parental leave, and affordable housing were made available to support families and promote social inclusion. Today, the oil and gas industry is of great importance in Norway, adding value to the economy, generating government revenues, encouraging investments, and boosting export value. This makes Norway stand out as one of the countries that have managed to avoid the negative effects of the oil curse. One of the major factors contributing to the persistent poverty of many oil-rich nations is their tendency to prioritize current spending over saving for the future. They make their economy heavily dependent on oil, and any oil price downturn puts it into crisis. When countries discover large oil reserves, they tend to reduce taxes on citizens and give more money to the people than before. When government spending is financed by oil revenue, it can decrease when oil prices decrease. This reduction can weaken their economy's control as they cannot influence oil prices. Consequently, when oil prices go down, their public spending also decreases, thus slowing down the economy. Oil companies employ a large part of the labor force in oil-rich countries. When oil prices decrease, oil companies cut back on expenses and lay off workers, causing economic crises in the oil-rich country. Despite being blessed with huge oil and gas reserves, Norway continues to finance its government spending by imposing high taxes on Norwegian citizens. The people are willing to pay high taxes for certain benefits, such as the free quality education system, which has made Norway one of the most educated countries in the world. Norway has become Europe's largest producer of oil and gas, followed by Russia. Worldwide GDP per capita in 2022 was approximately $12,647. In comparison, Norway's GDP per capita reached $108,729, totaling $593.35 billion for the entire country. Consequently, Norway is currently ranked 24th among the major economies. Norway's journey to prosperity has been a remarkable story of resilience, innovation, and strategic economic policies. By leveraging its abundant natural resources, investing in technology, and embracing a strong public sector, Norway has defied the odds and emerged as an economic powerhouse. That is all we have for today. If you like this video, make sure to give us a big thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notifications. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time. And if you want to continue exploring the different economic landscape in the world, you might be interested in this video on the screen.